It's my distinct pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, who is a true leader in the field of national security and cybersecurity, Suzanne Spaulding. Ms. Spaulding is currently a senior advisor for Homeland Security and the director of the Defending Democratic Institutions Project at the Center for Strategic and International Studies, CSIS. She also served as a member of the Cyberspace Solarium Commission, contributing to vital discussions on our nation's cybersecurity strategy. Before her role at CSIS, Ms. Spaulding was Undersecretary at the Department of Homeland Security, where she led the National Protection and Programs Director, which has since been renamed to the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA. Her extensive experience spans both Republican and Democratic administrations, as well as service on both sides of the aisle in Congress. Additionally, she has served as Assistant General Counsel at the CIA, General Counsel for the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, and Minority Staff Director for the House of Representatives Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. Today, Ms. Spaulding will share her vision of cybersecurity as the backbone of our democracy, ensuring our institutions remain resilient and our voices are heard. She will discuss how cybersecurity serves as a means to an end, not an end goal, highlighting its crucial role in fortifying the trust that binds our communities, enabling safe interactions, protecting our most vulnerable, and fostering innovation. Please join me in welcoming Ms. Suzanne Spaulding to the stage.
Thank you very much, Heyman, for that introduction, and to VeriSign and the other sponsors for helping to support this wonderful gathering. It's just so great to look around to see this full room. And you've already had such terrific conversations. I am sorry not to be able to be a part of this whole day, but I'm really thrilled to be here for just this little bit, at least, to have to talk with you all. As Deb and I were talking about, the various things that I could touch on in cybersecurity, she thought that you all might be very interested in this sort of message that I have been pushing for quite some time now. And it may seem strange at a conference focused on cybersecurity and how do we improve cybersecurity and how do we make sure we have the workforce we need at cybersecurity to push this message. That is the message that I often would remind my brilliant cyber ninjas at the Department of Homeland Security that I had the great honor of working with. And that is to always remember, cybersecurity is not the goal. Right? The goal is to take full advantage of all of the amazing benefits that a networked world can offer us. And I remember as the Undersecretary at DHS really having this hit me in a really big way when I was lucky enough to ring the closing bell at NASDAQ. And I don't know if any of you have ever had that opportunity at the stock exchange or NASDAQ or any of those listings, but it was really fun. And there was a great group of folks, and you get to give a little speech. Who knew when you push that button? And I remember thinking about all the conversations that we'd had as they gave me the tour, and talked about what goes on there, and all of the again amazing ways in which that listing, and I've been to the stock exchange, how those things have changed because of our networked world. And I remember starting to give my speech and sort of ad-libbing this point that what we were really about was enabling that vibrant economy that is reflected in those exchanges, right? And that cybersecurity is the enabler. Because we cannot take advantage of all of those amazing benefits of that networked world if we don't do the things we need to do to make sure that we can preserve the confidentiality of sensitive information and sensitive data, to make sure that we can ensure the integrity of that data, of that information, and of communications, whether between people or between people and machines or between machines. and to make sure, of course, that we can access the data and the information that we have there. But what it's really all about at the end of the day is not, and you know this, protecting those computers and those servers. It is about the functions that they enable. And I think one of the reasons that I believe that this is so important, there are a number of reasons. I think CISOs who come to their mission with this commitment, this idea, and remembering that they are an enabler, right, are going to have an easier time, I think, being viewed by the rest of their enterprise as a mission enabler. And by the C-suite, their colleagues in the C-suite, and by their boards, and I'm now sitting on a number of boards, and I see this as not just people who block you from being able to do what you want to do, and not just cost centers, but as part of the enterprise team enabling whatever the objectives of that team are. You know, being a profitable company, being able to look around the corner, see, and be resilient against risks, being able as a government agency to perform your mission essential functions. It's a really important mindset that if you can really adopt that, can really help you to help those who make resource allocation decisions understand that return on investment and why that is so important to them. It's, I think, a critical mindset to bring to the process of risk management that we need to bring to cybersecurity. And you all know that that process of risk management starts with assessing your risk and then looking at all of the ways in which you can mitigate that risk. And in assessing that risk traditionally, and I'm old-fashioned and I fall back on that traditional formula for assessing risk, which is that it is a factor of what could happen to you that would be disruptive or potentially even existential, and what is the likelihood of those things happening. And likelihood is a factor of both threat, the things that would be coming at you, and vulnerability, the things that those bad actors could exploit, for example. My problem with our discussions in cybersecurity is that traditionally we focus so much time and effort on threat and vulnerability, and not nearly enough time looking at consequences. Both understanding consequences, interdependencies, cascading consequences across sector analysis, but also looking at ways in which we can mitigate those consequences. And again, that goes back to that idea that the consequences are all about what those IT systems, networks, OT systems and networks enable. Right? And as you prioritize and as you make your case to the board, to the CEO, to the CFO, to folks that are decision makers that impact your ability to do your mission, focusing on consequences becomes really important, right? And I believe that is what's behind this focus on resilience. It's a growing understanding that we have to really start our analysis with what are the things we are most trying to avoid. Think about it in the context of nation-state adversaries and also non-state actors. On the cyberspace solarium, we wound up focusing very heavily on resilience. That was our number one pillar in our report. And it wasn't where members of the commission started. They started with this idea because the focus was on deterrence. How do we deter bad actors, right? And there was a real frustration with our inability to date to deter bad actors and a focus on we need to punch them in the nose, right? How do we increase their consequences to them of this bad action? As we talked about it, there became a growing recognition that resilience can be a very effective deterrent. right? You start by trying to understand what are the consequences that your adversary is trying to impose, right? Not just where are they going, but start with what do they want to accomplish in the real world? What are their objectives? And then how do we frustrate those objectives? How do we keep them from achieving those objectives? And yes, making it harder for them to get into your system is a really important way of frustrating their objectives. But so is being able to manage the consequences, right? So the deterrence is all about altering your adversary's cost-benefit analysis. So we spend a lot of time focused on increasing their costs, make it harder for them, right? And that's really important. But we also need to do a lot more to reduce the benefits that they can gain from their successful activities. And that, as you know, is not something that a CISO can do by themselves. That is an enterprise risk management effort. And so again, if you can help your entity, your organization understand that managing cybersecurity is all about figuring out how to have continuity of operations, how to have continuity of business, how to make sure that we can enable and sustain mission essential functions, then you are more likely, I think, to be able to get management to pull together the kind of cross-enterprise team that is going to be needed to manage, to understand what the consequences are and manage those consequences. Now, it may be a little bit unfair, but I often say, your CISO is no more likely to be able to tell you the full impact of a disruptive cyber attack on your business or your department or agency or entity than the electrician is to tell you about the full consequences if the power goes out, right? You really need to have your whole team there as part of that. And I think, again, remembering that cybersecurity is just a means to the end, is a mission enabler. It is not the end goal. Protecting those computers is a crucial part of that. And relevant to the discussions you've had, and particularly the last set of discussions that you had, I think a crucial part of resilience is making sure that you have a diverse workforce. Last year, Center for Strategic and International Studies did a report on innovation for resilience, and we pulled the resilience thread through a few topics: cybersecurity, extreme weather and climate change, and supply chain risks. But the first chapter was about the importance of a diverse workforce for resilience. And I want to just share with you a quote from that report. A diverse workforce is more likely to anticipate a wider range of potential crises, allowing for better planning and preparation. A diverse workforce and vendor base is also important for the sake of reducing the concentration of risk, a key requirement for building reliable supply chains that can withstand major shocks. In an area like cyber that is plagued by workforce shortage, investing in DEI and workforce resilience is essential to retain talent, mitigate burnout, and inspire the creativity and energy needed to tackle today's challenges. So the message I want to leave you with today in this, on this theme of cybersecurity is not the objective, i.e. protecting computers and servers, is to remember, and I know that you all know this, but it's hard to keep this in the forefront of your mind when you're lost in the day-to-day crises, right, of dealing with those IT networks and servers. But the message is that you are making a big difference. That you are enabling, and that you are, without you, we could not have this vibrant marketplace and economy that we have. That we could not have the incredible pace of innovation and technological change that we have that makes us so vibrant and so strong. And that we could not sustain our democracy without you. I often talk to companies and others, judges. I spend a lot of time talking to judges, I'll talk about that in a minute, and others in government, about the fact that they need to keep in mind that the goal of a bad actor in cyber may be to undermine reputation. We all know that reputation is a collateral impact of a successful cyber attack. But that may be, and increasingly, certainly with respect to government entities and critical infrastructure, that is the goal, right? We know that with the recent discovery of the malware throughout critical infrastructure from the Chinese, which we call Volt Typhoon, we know that some of that had nothing to do with espionage and everything to do with being in position to cause disruption. And that disruption in some places was pretty clearly designed to disrupt logistics, so frustrate military response, for example, or military action. But it was also in places that seemed designed to create panic, to undermine public will for the government to mobilize the public to take the actions that we might need to take. That's what's at stake, right? We see every day, we hear more about, how am I doing on time? Every day we hear more about how our foreign adversaries are trying to undermine our democracy, to sow division in our country, to exacerbate the divisions that exist and exploit those divisions for their own ends, undermine trust in our democratic institutions. One of the projects that I worked on at CSIS when I first got there, having left DHS and having had the honor of leading the men and women who work every day to try to strengthen the security and resilience of our nation's critical infrastructure. And I left in 2017, having seen what happened with that 2016 election and foreign malign influence. And I went to CSIS to pull together a bipartisan group to better understand those adversary intentions and tactics, techniques, and procedures, right? Their TTPs, and what was that all about, and what could we do to counter it? We did a report called Adversary Attacks on Democratic Institutions, and then I said, okay, I spent a number of years at CIA, and we used to do something called red teaming. You all know about red teaming, right? And you put yourself in the mind of your adversary. We knew that what we'd seen in 2016 from Russia was just one part of a longer-term, broader campaign to undermine trust in our democracy and our democratic institutions. It had been going on for a long time, and it was continuing. And I thought, all right, it's an uncomfortable place to be, but I'm going to put myself in Putin's mind. If I wanted to undermine democracy, where would I go next? What other institution, like elections, is so dependent on the public's faith and confidence in the legitimacy of the process to respect the legitimacy of the outcome? And I don't know how many of you may be trained as a lawyer, but I am trained as a lawyer, and I immediately thought about our justice system, right? And how incredibly dependent it is to do the things we ask it to do, to resolve disputes, to protect intellectual property, to ensure the peaceful transition of power. How dependent it is to be able to do those things on the public's acceptance of its decisions as determinative. And I thought, that's where I'd go next. Sadly, I thought we were getting out ahead of something because I hadn't heard anything about Russia going after trust in the justice system, but as we started looking into it, we found lots of mischief on social media, of malign information operations, spreading lies and mistrust of the justice system, exacerbating divisions around immigration, racial justice, taking advantage of vulnerabilities of our own making, picking up on legitimate concerns and flaws in our justice system and pushing the message that our system of democracy is not just flawed and needing reform, which it is, but that it's irrevocably broken and the individual is powerless to bring about any change. And those information operations are often cyber-enabled, as we know. And we just heard about the activities that Iran is engaging in, right? To hack into political campaigns, to hack into the systems of both current and former government officials in an effort to sow division and undermine trust and meddle in our elections. So the work that you do could not be more important. And I wanted to be here to say thank you for the work that you do each and every day. And to share with you, I'm a big baseball fan. Well, actually, I'm just a big Nationals fan. And I've probably been to close to 40 games this season. But years ago, so I always try to be there for the national anthem, and I always try to sing along, because I think we should. A few years ago, I was at a baseball game singing along to the national anthem, and I realized, the national anthem starts with a question, right? Oh, say, can you see? But it never answers that question, and it ends with the same question. It was written by Francis Scott Key during the War of 1812. And he was watching a battle from a distance. And as the sun was going down, at the twilight's last gleaming, he could see the flag, the American flag, flying over that fort. And through the night, noisy, vicious battle, right? Periodically, as the bombs would flare and the rockets' red glare, he could see that the flag was still there. But then the battle stopped. And now the sun is coming up. It's the dawn's early light. And he doesn't know who won. Does the flag still fly over the land of the free and the home of the brave? And I think it is a challenge to each and every one of us, every day, to do whatever we can to ensure that the values and the aspirations reflected in that banner, that our constitutional republic still stands. And I think that all of you, as I've said, are a crucial part of that. So again, I thank you. I thank you for what you do. And wish you the very best for the rest of your conversations today. I wish that I could stay and network with all of you. I unfortunately have to catch a train to New York, but Deb knows how to reach me. So thank you very much.